speak, please.
Oh.
Thanks for coming tonight. This is the second last of our themed community dinners, which we're trialling in the second half of this year. And tonight's theme is social inclusion as part of Social Inclusion Week, which is the next coming week. And so tonight we're going to hear from 3 of our youth group members about their experience in general, but specifically in being sex and gender diverse. And the first person we're going to hear from is Emma Erickson.
Hooray!
Thank you for that introduction, Izzy, and thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. So I am going to do something a little bit daring, because this is not something I do often. But a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, I did the storytelling workshop with AGN. I met lovely people that are here in the audience, and part of that workshop involved writing a story. And when Izzy asked me if I wanted to speak, I thought I would just have a look to see if I could find the story that I wrote. And I did find it, and when I read it, it was really interesting and compelling to see the way in which my experience of gender had changed from that time to the way that I understand it now. And I took that story and I actually wrote it into a series of haikus. I don't know if everyone knows what a haiku poem is, but the girl that sits next to me at work writes me a haiku every day and I write her back a haiku every day, so I kind of just think in 5-7-5. So a haiku is a short Japanese poem that is, the first sentence has 5 syllables, the second sentence has 7 syllables, and then it has 5 again. And so that's like the little poem, and it's supposed to encapsulate an idea. So I took the story that I wrote last time and I wrote it into haikus, and then afterwards I'm going to take a moment to just reflect on the ways in which my experience of gender has changed since when I wrote this story and how I experience it now, and kind of some of the new reflections and new revelations I've had about that then too. Maybe before I start I should also introduce that I identify as sex gender diverse. I did identify as genderqueer, but I'm not so sure about that anymore anyway, but sex gender diversity is something that I think is also kind of rather unexplored field, so we kind of just get to define it, you know, if you're sort of genderless or genderful with your experience. And so this is just a story about my experience. So it's called An Atypical Day. They wake up fighting, round 2 with the alarm clock, roll over, win for now. Get dressed from a wardrobe sorted by gender. Who are you today? Masculine at one end, feminine at the other, mixed in the middle. What will you need to be? Perform today. Hey, which gender is best? Pick out a bow tie, the hardest task of all. Why? I couldn't say. Run late for the bus. Get red as a boy on the bus. You know how I know? No one tells me to smile or to keep my chin up, love. They leave a boy be. A gender lecture. Stuck me on a pensive train. Everything is complex. The sheltered workshop where gender is unlocked, queried, but unjudged. Coffee with a queer. Chat, gossip, talk about sex, revel in genderfulness. Goes to a tutorial. Fearlessly tries to challenge. Don't let it slip away. Constructive conflict now feels like a lost art, but queer lives are this. Buddy up to the jock and flirt with the North Shore daughter, a strange space. Check out the passers-by, smile, catch an eye, sudden retort. For a moment, I forget. I notice the confusion at the moustache I'm wearing today. Smile harder. Mum calls, she asks, how are you? Why do you call? Boyfriend? You hang up. You phone to a women's department meeting. You feel so welcome. All your friends are there. But says cis-sexism is on the walls. Sisterhood is hard. Has dinner with friends. Argues about politics and feminism. Argue about everything. Loosen the bow tie. Lace up the boots. Pull off the jumper. Roll up the sleeves. Get to work. Behind the bar, you're king. You're the man. Everyone wants a bartender. Call for last drinks. Scrub the bar. Wave away the barflies. Crack open a beer. Finally get home. Take off all the layers. Yawn away the tension. Sleep, wake, repeat. So I don't know if anyone was counting the syllables there, but lots of mistakes. Anyway, that was based on a story that I wrote at the AJ Storytelling Workshop, and I think at that storytelling workshop we were really, we were taught to appreciate our experience for what it was and to tell our story for what it was. And so literally what I did was write out a typical day, and I wrote it out in bullet points, and so it was kind of fun turning it into haikus. But upon reflection of that last year, I think at that point I was really struggling with the idea of even accepting what it might be like to live a life that isn't defined by a gender binary, and instead is just defined by personality and gender as this fluid thing that flows into that and defines who you are. And I think now I'm graduating and I'm getting to a point where I'm kind of trying to work out, I got very comfortable with that sort of nothingness of gender, and now I'm trying to work out, graduating, how I fit into the real world, the non-university world, as a gendered person, and a gendered person that's gendered in multiple and intersecting ways, and what on earth that's going to mean. I think especially I had in the past a very tenuous relationship with feminist politics, and not necessarily always feeling welcome in feminist spaces, because there's such a strong emphasis on womanhood and womanhood as defined by a biology as a second wave legacy, and trying to overcome that, and then now applying for jobs in the women's sector and constantly emphasizing my womanhood as my qualification seems strange and confronting and confusing. So I suppose if there's anyone that wants to, like, I'm not sure if this is the sort of thing where discussion is up for it, or if anyone has any questions and they want to give me advice or ask me about what it's like to be young and genderqueer and how I've sort of worked around it and where I'm at now, I'm really happy to take that. But yeah, as a final thought, I suppose I've always felt like gender is something that is better if you live it genderful instead of genderless or gendered in a fixed sense. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
The next person to speak, oh well, thanks Emma for that, and the next person to speak is Jess, who's a wonderful person who I've been working with all year doing youth group stuff, and has helped me grow the youth group exponentially this year, and just been elected to our management committee for 2014.
Hooray.
She's fantastic.
Go for it, Jess.
Alright, so I'm not the best public speaker, so I'm going to be reading most of my notes, sorry.
Politicians do the same, alright.
My experience of being part of a sex and gender diverse community has both its positives and negatives, but on the whole it's very positive. Some of the only negatives are the homophobic and transphobic people that I've had the fortunate ability to avoid so far.
Right.
And the positives range far and wide. I've been fortunate enough to be able to have only experienced a very small amount of negativity towards my gender and presentation, all of which was in the early stages of my transition. I think in particular my favourite would have been the day when, in Woden, I was dressed just in skinny jeans and a loose top with my crop top on, as my breasts were only just developing at the time. And I was walking past these two guys sitting outside a restaurant, to which, after I'd passed them, I heard them one say to the other, "Is that a boy or a girl?" At the time, all I thought to myself was, yes, they can't tell, therefore the hormones are working. But now when I think back on it, I just think, sweet, I'm destroying the gender norms. Then there are all the mixed types of opinions of my gender. When I came out as trans at work, I was fortunate enough to be able to be surrounded by older people who had been watching and keeping up to date with documentaries, namely about trans stuff. The day after telling a third of my fellow staff, I had 3 people come up to me and congratulate me on the ability to come out so publicly. There were also those that were younger that had spoken with my store manager at the time, saying that they felt weird about the fact that me coming from a guy, then using the ladies' locker rooms and such. Then there are also the assumptions that people make about gender, and the fact that I'm transgender. One of the first questions I got was, so, do you like guys now? Like boys are with girls and girls are with boys, and any other variation is just a phase. And the second or third, mostly from closer friends I got, was, so, are you getting your dick chopped off? To which, up until 4 months ago, the answer was, I don't know, I haven't decided yet. My experience has been that to a lot of people not previously exposed to anything outside the heteronormativity has needed to be simplified to fit into their boxes. And it's not their fault, it's the way that society has shaped us and the lack of education for younger people. Everything got even more interesting when I got into queer theory, how sex works, and renaming parts of my own body for psychological benefit. Some of the various types of gender I'd had to explain, such as agender, defining what cisgender was more recently, bigender, MTF, FTM, genderqueer, gender fluid, and all of the other main ones that I was able to explain at the time, not to mention all the variations on sexuality. Here at AGA, there is a variation of all these, and then some, and no one bats an eyelid to. You are who you are, and you're accepted as you are for any presentation and orientation. Over the past year, I would have spent a good 80 plus hours with only 5 or 6 people explaining everything that is not heteronormative. Admittedly, most of that is self-experienced and personal views, but just the lack of knowledge that people have about trans communities. On the whole, I've been accepted with open arms by not only cis chicks that have helped me in so many ways to associate 19 years of female life I've missed, but also several guys. In fact, one of my besties at work, he and I have pretty much no boundaries about what we talk about. I got asked about SRS and how it functions, and I started with, well, I will be getting it, and the next word out of his mouth were, so you're getting your dick chopped off. Where? To which I replied, Bangkok. And then we both just started laughing hysterically. All the things we talk about, though, my favourite was with him when I'd had sex for the first time in 13 months since breaking up with my girlfriend of 18 months, after 18 months on hormones. The first day of toy sale in lay-by, people everywhere. I was explaining how I much more enjoyed sex on being on hormones. Boobs, so much fun. I'll keep it PG rated, so that's where I'll have to stop. So what I was asked to talk about was what it's like being a young person who's sex and gender diverse. To which I say that young people around our age, there is no difference. We are just a part of everyday life. There will always be those that generally avoid talking about anything not heteronormative. But this is the same for those older than us youthies. We are the next generation, and there are those that support us and reject us. Being sex and gender diverse is just becoming a part of everyday life, and talked about so much more. Yesterday, in fact, when I went for a blood test, I had it done by this gorgeous chick, and we somehow got talking about queer stuff, to which I was told that she had not long broken up with her girlfriend. The queer community is just that, a community that connects with queer stuff.
Outstanding. Excellent.
Yeah.
You should.
So here I am, a man of sorts, and there are a lot of sorts. Tolerance, tolerance, tolerance is the mantra I must play 1, 2, 3 times every day. Hopefully love will replace it. How far I cannot measure the distance. In its place love then, I shall aspire. Maybe then, eternal bliss. About a year ago now, for days, I meditated. For hours upon hours, with only brief interludes inhaling cigarettes. I meditated on the self. Before this, at night, I closed my eyes and I felt I was lost in this abyss, this fog. So as I meditated, I had glimpses, and I was a boy again. A few weeks before this, my girlfriend, she suggests to me that I'm disassociating. Immediately afterwards, I walked to the GP's office, and we engaged in dialogue, which consisted 3 times him asking, how am I? I'm great. I'm great. I'm great. Let me just describe to you what greatness is. Paranoia, delusional ideation, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. That is greatness. Afterwards, I walk to the park adjacent, and I sit, and I stand, and I just feel the flood of tears roll down my cheeks. I'm presenting as this young, feminine woman with a skirt, a tight top showing my cleavage, long, straight hair, and makeup. And as I witness people observing me, I can see it in their eyes. They know it's not quite right. I'm a freak. I'm a freak again. Age 17. Age 17, I decided to disinherit all my natural inclinations and propensities and adopt new ones. My friend walks by me and pass in the canteen, and all I can hear is my heart throb. I have a crush on her. This is devastating. I'm horrified. I'm so attached to this idea of heterosexual normacy that should offer me popularity at school. I even detach from my bold confidence, for it can be mistaken as masculinity. Naturally, I fall into this depression that plagues me for years. Age 10. Age 10. I'm jumping on my trampoline. I'm the guy saving the girl from the evil monster. I'm playing soccer with my mates. I'm rolling cars in the dirt. I'm chasing the girls. I start seeing boobs and hips walking around. And I realise it's going to be really damn hard in high school unless I change. So I change. I start hanging out with a girl, albeit a tomboy, but a girl. And I decide to start growing my hair. It takes some time, and even at age 12, people still think I'm a boy. A new girl at school engages in flirtations with me, for which I'm hesitant to respond. Deceitful, dishonest, I can't do this. She thinks that I'm a guy, but she's pretty and popular. So I respond. We're in the hall. The teacher instructs for boys to sit down and girls stand up. I told you so. This is awkward. This, among other things, creates anxiety. Age 6. Age 6, our teacher instructs us to write down our greatest wish. I want to be a boy. In private, she consults me a second time. And I say, adamantly, yes, I want to be a boy. This is published in the annual school magazine, for which my parents' friends, my brother, his friends read and laugh. My career as a politician, as Prime Minister of Australia is ruined. So here I am now, a man of sorts. No longer do I try and fit into the mould that imprisoned me for years. But now I'm finally finding my own groove. And it's fantastic. No longer do I deny my masculinity, nor do I suppress any femininity. And what about all those other traits? I'm privileged to live in this day and age. And for all those other transgender people before me who have fought for this privilege now, I thank you. So now I look out with my own eyes. Here's for authenticity.